Thank you for having me as always.
Hmm.
Greeting all your audience. And yeah, that one coming by surprise a little bit. I thought that he could have probably stayed out in Europe and continue to develop out there. But with everything that's going on in MLS and the growth of this league, it's not necessarily uh, uh, a downgrade that's going to keep him there. He could come back, develop, continue to grow on a lot of aspects of his game, and then make another attempt to stay in the European team, in the European League. So he definitely is an asset for Minnesota. Uh, Everything that he brings in is kind of coexists with what you have right now going on. I think Reynoso would be happy to have a guy with that sort of engine and talent and ability to just be shifty. So yeah, I think it's a good fit. And I don't see anything wrong with it. Minnesota definitely continues to surprise in that aspect. I think they've gotten a lot better in terms of their scouting and roster building. So those are step forwards in general for Minnesota.
All right. We've got, and this is the weird thing that happens with Major League Soccer. We are in a massive international competition window, and we may even get into that to finish up things with South American qualifiers already starting this weekend and this week. What is your overall thought on Major League Soccer playing games through an international window?
Uh, I think it can be done better. I
Yeah.
think it can change. I'm not as. This is outrageous because there are leagues that do play throughout the window in Brazil. There's been times in Colombia league that just certain games happen. You have to play through those games. It's just a lot more obvious here because there was no attempt at all to change it initially. There have been a couple of adjustments made. We've talked to coaches around the league, and they are asked about particular games. Where do you guys want this game? This is how many players that you might not have for an international window. Where would you like to put that game? So small things have happened, but with 70 players from MLS being called up to various national teams for this international break, um, it's been is a lot more serious. It's more in your face. It's a clear problem for everybody. And I'm not gonna lie, having a guy like Tata Martino and Lionel Messi here gives you a little bit more of a couple of voices that have some authority and that are gonna want to make those changes. Tata's not happy to play this upcoming game without all his stars and quite a few of his young prospects. So with someone like him at hand and saying, "Hey, man, we need to figure this out," I think there is a way that you could probably fix it. Reality, though, is that you have CONCACAF Champions League, you have or Champions League Cup.
Right.
You have the New Leagues Cup. You have Open Cup. You have MLS. So there is a lot of a clog of a calendar where you might have to either cut back on some MLS games or figure out some of the schedules. But it's no easy task to truly not play when there's that FIFA break and players are obligated to go to their national teams.
And the reason I ask is because you're reading my notes. And this weekend, we've got a handful of matches in Major League Soccer. And one of them has to do with Messi and friends as they chase after that final playoff spot. And they've got Sporting Kansas City coming to town. Right now, Miami has escaped wooden spoon territory. They've got 9 matches to go, if my math is right. And they are 8 points out of that final playoff spot. And I don't necessarily, would we be bringing up this topic if it wasn't Messi and friends? They weren't making this rush. And you have 9 players from your roster that will not be available to you in this match that is this important. heading down the line. I mean, let me. Where is my list? Because there was a list that was posted by Major League Soccer of everybody who's not going to be available. Who's going to be out on window and all these kinds of things. And it was 9 players. 9, man, for
Inter Miami. Yeah, you got Calendar, Kremoski, Messi, Gomez.
I found it. So
I'm at 4.
Okay, Azcona, Calendar, Kremoski, Gomez, Krivtsov, Joseph, Messi, Ruiz, and Robert Taylor.
Ruiz. Okay. Yep. Exactly. That's a whole lot of players. Tata talked about it, right? We already have some academy kids up in our roster, and now we're going to have to dig even deeper to play a game because the Sporting Kansas City team that got Pulido back, that looks different with Pulido, that is starting to see flashes of vintage Russell, that the defensive end has finally solidified themselves to a certain way. They're coming with some momentum. They need the points. So yeah, that's tough break for Inter Miami team that we talked about this in Soccer Bar. You look at the calendar and the next 4 games are key, right? It's this one. Can you draw? Can you pull up a point? And then you play Atlanta, right? That's a huge game. You're playing at Atlanta. Atlanta needs points. Atlanta is in a different mindset these days, despite, still some inconsistencies. It's a rival. It's a tough atmosphere. It's Tata back in Atlanta. So that's a big one. Then, they get a nice, easy one, a freebie against Toronto, and then they go to Orlando. That's another tough game. So I think those are the games that are going to define whether Inter Miami goes through or not.
Well, and then you even look past that a little bit. You end up with, when you come back after this match with Sporting, when everybody's allegedly back, if they haven't hopped on a flight and gotten a private jet and worked their way back to their home teams. They've got 5 matches in 14 days. After that, you take the Sporting match that's this weekend, you put that one to the side. After this weekend, 5 matches in 14 days. At Atlanta, home to Toronto, 4 days later. 4 days later, at Orlando. 3 days later, it's the U.S. Open Cup final against Houston. 3 days later, you host NYCFC. So that's hell, man. I mean, that is hell to try to get your matches made back up and possibly winning a title. And that the priority in there with all of this is winning Open Cup to get another crown for this team in this season. So are you figuring, okay, is it the Orlando match? You can't do that because that's a rival. You can't sit folks on that one. Is it the home match against NYC that ends this run where you see some rotation? I mean, there's a lot of decisions that are going to have to be made after that Sporting match this weekend, and your future might already be decided for you a little bit.
Absolutely. And the one bright spot when it comes to that potential rotation is that so far so good for rotating this squad. And you saw it against LAFC. Tata surprises everyone by not playing with Capana on top, allows Facundo Farias to be right next to Lionel Messi. Can Lionel Messi just come off the bench eventually? I don't know. But when I looked at that team and I saw what they were able to do with a lot of different guys, that's the very first time that all 6 new players played with Inter Miami. And although it took them a little bit of time, they absorbed pressure. Calendar was amazing, regardless of Buanga's inability to score and wanting to be the it man and just honestly not taking advantage of easy choices in front of goal. But I thought that they were able to do that. And then once things got going, they put up a clinic in transition, absolutely flawless, 2-3 spots. Lionel Messi just making that back line look silly. Aaron Long helping out a little bit with some passes to Lionel Messi of his own. But at the end of the day, I think that this team is starting to see what certain players can provide, even if at some point they don't have Busquets and Alba and Lionel Messi. So I think in that regard, Tata Martino has to be feeling pretty good about the other supporting cast alongside Messi and friends.
And at the same time, you're kind of setting things up for next season, because there's the talk of Luis Suarez possibly coming in, and he, that he would probably end up being a DP or a high TAM if he signs the Busquets or Alba deal, whichever direction he goes. But with the young players that they brought in, you're kind of seeing that gravitational pull of the young guys that want to come in and either be U22s or sign contracts and play with Messi, Alba, Busquets, and Messi and friends. So there's this build at the same time that they're making this race to chase after not one title or two, and then the playoff push at the same time.
Yeah. And I think anytime you have a guy like Tata Martino that can set your pieces and can create systems that allow those players to be successful or play pragmatic or do whatever he needs to do to get points, I'm starting to turn into a believer. I mean, I was the guy that told you guys that this was impossible to happen. And not in my best guess would have ever thought that this thing was going to be as good as it's looking right now, right? I had no idea that those three characters in a team would create a whole new persona in Kremaskidas all of a sudden with the U.S. national team, that Taylor was going to turn into this polished white player that is decisive and patient at times and can coexist with all these stars, and that Campana would be okay coming off the bench, and that Joseph would not be screaming at the top of his lungs to start. Everything just kind of fit with these guys, and that's been the real reason why this team continues to surprise everybody, is because they are really working as a unit. And I think you have to credit those new players and Tata Martino for how everything's working out.
No doubt. And you stare at it, and I think that this sprint toward the end of this month will, obviously, I think that by Open Cup, we might have the idea as to what the approach is going to be for Messi and friends when it comes to the last month of the season in October. Coaching news this past week: Robin Fraser fired in Colorado. And the big point that we were discussing on the show leading up to today's discussion with you is that if things are the way they are in Colorado, where they're not scoring goals, and if it wasn't for William Yarborough, they would be horrendous defensively. The defensive numbers would be off the charts bad. Why fire Robin Fraser now unless you've got a runway prepped for next year that we don't know about, and it doesn't necessarily look like that's the case? Why not let Robin Fraser just finish out the string, work on all your stuff behind the scenes, say something that put out an announcement if you're going to make this decision. Robin Fraser, his contract will not be renewed for next season. We look forward to finishing the season with Robin and building things toward the 2024 season. What did you think of the dismissal?
They needed a scapegoat. That general manager in the front office, they needed a scapegoat to say, hey, it's not us. It's not the fact that we were mediocre in scouting and bringing players and trying to make and give Fraser and the rest of these players tools to win some games. And we try to get out here and bring the striker that this franchise needed. And just that they had to not do that, they fired the coach. And it's unfortunate. It's sad. You're talking about a coach that was a runner-up for head coach of the year in 2021. Is a guy that early in the season was doing what he could to earn points, had injuries, made some mild moves to try to keep his team going, and yet wasn't able to do it. But the real issue here is that he went into new MLS with new talent, with a roster that might not even be a fighting chance type of team 5-6 years ago. So you haven't grown, you haven't developed, you haven't been able to either develop guys or have your DPs be successful. So it's just about a bad Colorado franchise that needed to blame someone. And so they let go of Fraser. But there is no plan. I don't see, to your point, any effective reason to fire him now. It's not like they're going to be looking for a guy. It's not like you're going to be getting any of these top guys that just left any teams. Gio's not going there. He's definitely not going there. Not with that type of team.
Right.
If Bruce goes, Bruce definitely not going there. So what's the point? What's the reason? There is no real reason. They just want to make the fans seem like, oh, we're unhappy with how things played out. We had no idea that with this roster we couldn't win, and so we let go of the coach. That's the only reason.
Have you heard in your circles, and this is basically, a yes, no, maybe kind of a thing. Have you heard anything about the Bruce Arena situation? We are now a month and 4 days, I believe, if my math is correct, after he was placed on administrative leave. And this has been one of the tightest-lipped ideas that we have seen in recent history with any coach, any league, any platform. We've heard nothing. And then Showery Joseph comes out yesterday on his Twitter, and what seemed like it was a bit of a goodbye. He's thanking him for all of the meetings and everything and all the wisdom that he imparted. Have you heard anything on any level about what is going on in New England?
I'm going to be very careful with this because if there is one person that does not allow anyone to say the most remote or indication of his character at all, his Bruce Arena. So I'm going to be very careful. What I will say is that there had been rumblings in the locker room about some issues with Bruce Arena and maybe him having some problems with that front office in New England. But I'm just seeing what everybody's seeing, reading in between the lines of the last couple of games. We know that Bruce Arena is someone that might say something that is not acceptable, or perhaps he shouldn't say. He's a bit of an old school guy, and he's someone that everywhere he's been, he's kind of the Nick Saban of wherever he goes, right? So, who's going to come at me? Is it the press? Is it the players? Not really. I'm the coach. I'm the coach. Yeah. So because of that, I think that perhaps it might rub the wrong way of certain people around the organization or the team, and that is probably what we're seeing there slowly. But there has been indications throughout the season, if you really look at it and you really read certain stories, where you might start to see and kind of fit where things started to go wrong for Bruce. But it sounds like, to what you just mentioned, everybody knows something that we don't know. Everybody in that organization knows something that's coming that no one knows. But if you read in between the lines, it seems like Bruce Arenas is likely to be announced as probably parting ways, mutual departure, or both parties decided to move on.
Right. Yeah, and I like I said, since you are far more plugged in than a lot of folks, I just want to know if you had heard anything or if it was as sealed up to you and your sources at Pulso and Soccer Bar as it has been to us, having heard virtually nothing when it came to the situation over the last month plus.
Yeah, absolutely. And I tried to reach out to a few sources down there in New England. I tried to get some few sources that you would think or you would know that have a close association with Bruce, and absolutely nothing came about it. So I'm kind of been in the red of, just like you guys, kind of in the blind when it comes to that. But like I said, as much as I've heard things here and there in the past from certain sources, you could see that there was starting to be a little dysfunction and a little bit uneasiness about him continuing as the head coach.
All right. Going quickly into last weekend and running into red light, yellow light, green light before we go, because we both have a hard out top of the hour. Last weekend, NYCFC Vancouver draw. Orlando beat Cincinnati 1-0. DC put 4 on Chicago. And it appears that Wayne Rooney is not happy with his contract situation or with the rules of engagement in Major League Soccer. The Telegraph this morning is saying that if there is a coaching change at Birmingham City, that they would like to have Wayne Rooney come back to have a big splash and such. So that came out this morning. Crew doubled Montreal 4-2. New England, Austin 2-2 draw. Dallas, Atlanta 2-2 draw. Kansas City beat All Caps 2-1. Nashville and Charlotte tied at 1. RSL beat Colorado 2-0. Everybody beats Colorado. LAG and Houston Dynamo, goalless draw. San Jose tied Minnesota. Seattle and Portland 2-2 draw. Where do you want to go?
I mean, are we going green light, red light, or are we just going to talk about some of these games?
Yeah, recap last week before we go into red light, yellow light, green light.
All right. So let's start with the Sounders, just because that's kind of the one of the subjects that I have to touch on, and I'll try to be brief here. A 2-2 draw that should have not been. The Seattle Sounders dominated that first half. They look good, intensity-wise, tempo-wise, being dangerous throughout their first half. They had the right idea. It seemed like they had the number finally against Portland. And Leo Chu decides to take off his jersey in the 27th minute after a very good goal, a goal he deserved. And let me be clear on something. Whenever I criticize a player, it's not because I'm trying to be a bad guy or I don't understand, the emotion that goes through a player, but I do expect you to be a professional first and think of your teammates first. And if you want to show that passion and you really are taking this rivalry by the horns, then show that to me by not taking off your jersey and getting a yellow card that was going to limit you for the rest of the game, that you knew that you might need that yellow card as a white player that has a lot of responsibilities, including defensive ones, where if you need to be, you might need to take a tactical foul and you're going to need that yellow card. So all in all, I appreciate Chu's effort, the goal, the dangerousness throughout that game, but that really put the team in a disadvantage. And then it resulted in a red card after he goes in a little bit late. Was it a yellow? Was it not a yellow? I don't really know. It was a soft, perhaps. But at the end of the day, you caused that issue by getting a childish, selfish yellow card initially. Now, he addressed it. He said that he apologized, that he'll learn from this experience. I certainly hope so. But that red card in the second half gave Portland life, momentum. Darren Asprilla comes in. Darren Asprilla has been a nightmare for the Seattle Sounders in his whole career, every single time. Doesn't matter if he's starting in PKs or coming off the bench. Darren Asprilla has been a nightmare for Seattle, and he proved that right. Posterizes Nuhu once again, as Gigi did a couple of weeks back. He could have done better on that one. All in all, I think Brian Smetzer also has some fault here. He could have taken Chu off, for one. Number two, once Chu's off, he takes too long to make the reactive changes, right? And then by the time he brings in a defender and someone to help out defensively, the game's already 2-2. So now you're holding on to a draw. So big game for a Seattle Sounders team that was already stumbling, and now they get another emotional punch to the gut, and we'll see how they respond.
All right, 2-minute warning, red light, yellow light, green light. Go ahead and run them all together. What do you know?
All right, well, if we're going to run them all together, let's go ahead and my red light was obviously not going to be Colorado because we've just known too much about it. It's no big deal. But I'm going to go ahead and say that San Jose is starting to trend in the wrong direction here. They were a team that I was very high on, that is well coached, that I think has some pieces. But the 1-1 against Minnesota was a little bit of a red flag to me. And I'm going to go ahead and put them down from the yellow to the red, simply because of the rest of their schedule, where they're sitting right now in the Western Conference, and because I think that they could really stumble down and have some issues. So I'm going to go ahead and place them there at the red light. With the yellow, I'm going to go with Inter Miami. Inter Miami is yellow trending on green. If they can draw this game coming up without 9 players, I'm going to be able to put him in a green. I mean, this team dominated LAFC. It was a 3-1 game that, whether it could have gone another way or not, is not here nor there. This is the way that it resulted. Lionel Messi didn't have a great game, but he gave you 15 minutes, 5 here, 5 there, 5 there of brilliance, and that was good enough. Alba was connected. I like what Facundo Farias brought in. Then Campana came on. He looks dangerous. He knows where to be. Like what Gomez is doing. I'm still surprised on Busquets and his ability to, in this game, play as the lone six. I didn't think he could do it. He did it. So this team is trending in the right direction. I'm going to put him at the yellow. Now, when it comes to the green, there's no team in terms of results that, for me, deserves the green.
Wow. Okay, cool.
So because of that, I'm just going to give Cincinnati the shout they deserve, because this is a franchise that, from being the worst, like 3 seasons in a row, having no direction, no goals, they are now on their way to their first title as the Shield contenders for the MLS. Unless something tragic happens, unless I have no idea what could possibly go wrong for Cincinnati to not get the Shield. But if all is normal in the world, they should get a Shield, and they deserve an applause, and that's why I'll put them on the green category. Once again, they've been in the green, but I wanted to reinstate their greenness level by giving them a shout and taking off my hat and applauding that franchise for turning it around.
Pulso Sports and Soccer Bar, what's going on?
Pulso Sports, we are going to the training grounds today. There's going to be a lot going on here at Sounders training. We're going to try to gauge the players on a long break that they have and try to figure out how they can get out of this funk. So check that out. We are also having a Columbus Crew player that hopefully we should be able to interview at the end of this week. So that's going to be a good one. I won't say a name just in case I can't secure it, but you guys hopefully will see it by tomorrow, Friday. And we'll talk more about that. Soccer Bar, it's been really, really great having everybody on. I'm going to go ahead and give you guys credit for helping us out to grow. Our views continue to grow. Our subscribers continue to grow. Really appreciate that. We had a really good show on Tuesday because Memorial Day Monday, we didn't do a show then. And then today we're going to get back to it. We're going to talk all things CONMEBOL, some MLS, the U.S. men's national team games coming up. So you can go ahead and check that out at Soccer Bar.
He's Niko. I'm John. That's Thursday. Jack Collison, head coach of Hunt City, joining us to start hour number 2 tomorrow, starting off at 9:05. We're both out the door because we got to go get smart. We'll take it again, 9:05 tomorrow morning. Niko, as always, my friend, thanks for hanging out. He gives you the salute. I give you the close.